have what I call a Mount Rushmore of unproblematic white dudes: James Dean, James Taylor, Dick Van Dyke, and Robert Redford. Those guys have always represented an ideal that seems to be pretty elusive for men of any era off screen. Robert Redford passed away recently at the age of 89. I don't even know how Robert Redford got to be 89 years old. I discovered his movies when I was around 11 years old. I was fast becoming a huge fan of classic films, and I immediately recognized him as someone who had respect, both as a dramatic actor and a pinup king. Somewhere along the lines of a Brad Pitt or a George Clooney these days. Wait a minute, are those references outdated? Maybe like a Jeremy Renner or a Leo DiCaprio. Legit acting chops, but definitely popular with the ladies. Like all the unproblematic, unmelanated kings in my Mount Rushmore, I discovered Robert Redford at a time when I was dealing with a lot of isolation and disenchantment. I had kind of a quirky upbringing that I won't bother getting into now, but let's just say escapism was the way that I coped with my circumstances. Classic television, film, and music were my drugs of choice. I feasted on Barefoot in the Park, This Property is Condemned, The Great Gatsby, The Way We Were, All the President's Men, and The Natural. I would scour the TV listings every week looking for Robert Redford films, and I would beg my mother to let me stay up and watch them, even if they aired at 3 a.m. Of course, in that case, I knew her answer would be no. In those films, I got to experience worlds that were very different from my own. It's only recently that I've started to realize the common thread that might have drawn me to Redford's films, specifically at that time. I think it was the need to see characters that took control of their own destinies. When Natalie Wood blew up that house at the end of Inside Daisy Clover, she was reminding us that she had agency over her own life. When Robert Redford moved into that tiny apartment with his ditzy wife, Jane Fonda, and Barefoot in the Park, they got to make their own rules, no matter how ill-conceived. When Butch and Sundance jumped off that cliff, they were making a life and death choice, but it was their own to make. When I think back, self-determination was really the ultimate elusive goal for me. But the characters that Robert Redford chose to play, they reached out and claimed it, no matter what it cost them. And Robert Redford embodied those characters so well. As the defiant mountain man, Jeremiah Johnson, getting his butt absolutely kicked by the natives. As the great Waldo Pepper, who would rather put his life on the line than to live out an uninspired experience. As the defiant prison warden, Henry Brubaker, who was willing to risk everything to defend his unorthodox methods. That was the first film whose ending ever brought me to tears. Still does. Robert Redford really represented the last of a generation of man's men, those actors who could forego the press circuit if they wanted to. You won't find a lot of footage of him yakking it up with Dick Cavett or Mike Wallace. He let the work speak for itself. He was a part of that group of actors whose personal lives we really didn't know a lot about. The Gene Hackmans, the Al Pacinos, the Paul Newmans. They got to choose their roles carefully, and they never really had to kowtow to the bloodthirsty gossip hounds. Robert Redford really wasn't in the tabloids. He eschewed the Hollywood scene for Utah all the way back in the 60s. He was an avid environmentalist. He was an accomplished director of films like Ordinary People, A River Runs Through It, and Quiz Show. He started the Sundance Film Festival and Channel. He supported indie filmmakers. The man had taste. He stood for what he believed in politically, and his characters reflected that. He seemed to enjoy being in committed relationships. He had 2 marriages and no major scandals that I know of. And he worked pretty extensively in his latter years, really only slowing down recently. His was an exemplary life and career. He made his mistakes, for sure. I'm still working on forgiving him for the colonial cosplay in Out of Africa. But he got so much right. His death is a stark reminder for me that the era of old-fashioned movie stars is slowly becoming a thing of the past. Robert Redford's name for me will always be synonymous with a certain mid-century American ideal that seems to be fading from memory. Maybe it never really existed in the first place, but he embodied the hell out of it while he was here. Goodbye, Robert, from that 11-year-old girl who stumbled upon a 2-day marathon of your films on the movie channel at a hotel in Toronto and begged her family to let her watch Barefoot in the Park just one more time.